the 10th talk series of phase 2 on transitioning to modern energy for cooking. So just for those who've joined us for the first time, this session has been organized by Finovista under the MECS program. So Modern Energy Cooking Services program is a UK FCDO funded global research program which is working on accelerating the transition to clean cooking from biomass based cooking and traditional fuels, and it's doing the initiatives on a global level. Finovesta is the in-country partner for MECS program in India, and under the program, we are working on an array of initiatives which span across, policy, research, evidence building, supply chain of solutions, working with entrepreneurs and the clean cooking device manufacturers in India, developing innovative platforms for stakeholder management and connect, and also to discuss on various issues regarding the transition to clean cooking. And talk series is one of such kind of a platform that we've created. So basically it's a virtual platform on which we organize these sessions on a monthly basis. In the phase 1 we've already successfully organized 12 sessions, and we are in the phase 2 on the 10th session itself. Happy to share that it's a growing community. We have 1800 plus global registrations under this talk series, and there have been discussions on multiple important aspects. So today all of us are over here, and I'm very happy that we are going to be discussing a topic which is very, very close to my heart specifically. So we all know that globally around the world, the daily cooking responsibilities are largely held by women and girls in the households. So not only the responsibilities of cooking, but fuel collection and managing the household budgets. In case of cooking with traditional fuels, we know that apart from the fact that it has impact on environment and health, but of course women and children are disproportionately impacted. We understand very clearly that there is a high cost in terms of the time and the efforts which are spent by women. They get less time for their leisure, for their children and family. Of course, this creates a lot of gender inequality. Being a woman in the family and taking care of all these household chores is of course a non-paid job, and it's there's a lot of time and personal energy and efforts which are actually spent over it. We know that transition to clean cooking globally would actually ensure improved health for women. It would improve the overall environment, ensure the safety of their children, a lot of me and leisure time, and of course open up a lot of economic opportunities for the women globally. So this brings us to the topic for today, which is how we can actually engage women in the whole aspect of transitioning to modern energy for cooking, to ensure that we are actually achieving the universal access to clean cooking, and the importance of making this sector more inclusive and more user centric. From today's topic and today's discussion, we are hoping to get some aspects on what are the perceived gender specific barriers and how we can actually address those barriers. What are the kind of platforms which would be effective to connect policy making with women and women groups, and how we can see the role of women as entrepreneurs in catalyzing the market in developing more culturally appropriate and sustainable solutions. So with this, I will now, open the floor in terms of starting this session. But before that, just a small, announcement of one of the initiatives that we are currently running. This is about Cook Clean, Pitch Green, which is an investor connect initiative that we are running under the Modern Energy Cooking Services program in India. And more details about this will be available on our website, and my team will be sharing the link. The important thing is that the applications for this program is closing on 14th August. So I would request, the fellow entrepreneurs and the clean cooking startups to have a look at the opportunity. And just about the next talk series, which is going to happen on 17th August on supply chain. Yeah. So with this, I will actually invite our first speaker for today. So I would request Miss Sylvia Sartori. She's with us today. She's a senior consultant with ECO, a management consultancy specialized in design, formulation, and assessment of energy and climate change mitigation and adaptation projects and programs. Sylvia has been working for past 17 years on multiple international development and cooperation projects in Asia at the nexus of energy, environment, climate, and women's empowerment and entrepreneurship, private sector development, innovation, and sustainability. She's also serving as a senior expert on women in energy in Central Asia with the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. I will request Sylvia to please, share her experiences and her learnings from a lot of initiatives that she's already engaged with globally. Over to you, Sylvia.
Thank you very much, Sheetal, and good evening, everyone, or good afternoon to anyone else that might be joining from Europe. It is really a pleasure to be here with you today. Can you hear me all right? Okay, sorry, because I was hearing an echo. Very good. Thank you for confirming. Yeah, I was saying, first of all, it's really a pleasure to be here with you today. And I would like, first of all, to thank the organizers sincerely for organizing this event in the first place, and for extending their invitation for me to speak at this talk session, which is on a topic that remains indeed critically urgent and requires our utmost attention. As it has already been anticipated, I have been engaged with different donor initiatives related to the clean cooking sector in Asia and in Africa for about 10 years. And I have seen in different capacities how different actors have been testing different approaches. So it is based on these experiences that I would like to share with you here today some reflections which I've made on these topics, and which I hope will be helpful to spark a debate and to contribute to new visions and approaches. Mine, I warn you, are possibly not going to be the most traditional and conventional reflections that you might expect on such a topic. But it is because I believe that the urgency of the matter calls us to dramatically change the way how we think of this problem and the way how we try to address it. So the first reflection I made when I received this invitation is about the timing. In 2023, 7 years away from the Agenda 2030 target, here we are debating about the value and the ways to engage more women in the clean cooking sector, a sector whose products are predominantly used by women. So my first question and my first thought have been, what does this tell us of where we stand in terms of advancing gender equality as a whole and in terms of promoting clean cooking? The fact alone that we are still here discussing why and how more women should be involved is for me a sign that things are not progressing, and they are not progressing at the pace we need, especially if we consider that as of 2020, there were still 2.4 billion people around the world without access to clean cooking. These are data from the World Bank. And you can easily guess who most of those 2.4 billion people are. Women, of course. One of my initial considerations is that we shall be careful about how we frame these conversations, because opposite to our intentions, they may actually end up reinforcing the belief and then the practice that clean cooking is a women's matter, when not only it is not a women-specific matter, But also, it is precisely the notion that clean cooking is about women that is part of the problem. And I will come back to this in a moment. My second reflection, in fact, has been about the title of this event. And I was wondering, is engaging women across the clean cooking value chain truly game changing? From the multiple projects, pilots, and initiatives that I have seen, especially in sub-Saharan Africa and in South Asia, I personally think that what would be truly game changing would be to have more men around the cook stove. What I mean is that I think we need less segregation between men and women along the whole value chain. And we need to stop thinking in terms of which gender performs which activity, and then from here, which gender should be involved at which stage of the process. In other words, we shall start by questioning the association cook stove equals women. I think we need to promote a reframing of household responsibilities and duty performances, first of all, because it is only when men also understand in practice what it means to deal with cook stoves that the urgency and the importance of the changes that we are advocating here today can be scaled up. Let me give you two examples to better explain what I mean. In June 2020, the Clean Cooking Alliance, Sustainable Energy for All, Energia, and members of the People-Centered Accelerator held a webinar on women entrepreneurship in the clean cooking and sustainable energy sectors in COVID times. The purpose was to understand how the unprecedented crisis was impacting on women entrepreneurs in this sector and how they were coping with it. We are all very well familiar with the long list of challenges that COVID has created. But what struck me during that webinar was the experience told by one sub-Saharan African entrepreneur. She explained that during the lockdowns and despite the general economic crisis, the loss of livelihoods, and all those related financial problems, sales of cleaner cook stoves had suddenly and steadily increased. So while financial availabilities were shrinking at the household level, clean cook stoves were suddenly becoming an essential product in the local markets, and demand was rising. And why was it so? Because as a result of lockdowns, men were spending unusually long periods of time at home. And then they started realizing how inconvenient, how uncomfortable, and how hazardous the traditional stoves were. So procuring cleaner and safer stoves became a priority for them and for their household, even in difficult circumstances such as those of the COVID days. The second example refers to a pilot project that was supported by the Gender and Energy Innovation Facility. The facility was a program launched by Energia together with a number of donors, including the MECS program, in fact, between 2020 and 2022, to pilot projects in Kenya, Tanzania, and Nepal that developed, tested, and evaluated innovative approaches to address the persistent gaps in the gender and energy space. Clean cooking was one of the three target areas of the program. A very innovative project in this sector was developed and tested in Tanzania. The first novelty about it was that it was designed and implemented by a very unusual actor in this landscape, which is to say, a digital media company. The other novelty is that one of the ways how it set out to address gender inequality and access to clean cooking was by developing cooking classes with and for men. Specifically, the project produced a series of video episodes showing men in the kitchen using different stoves and cooking different recipes. Then they broadcast these episodes online and on social media, including reviews and comments on the different stoves that were being used. At first, frankly, it has been very challenging for them to find male candidates who were available to be on stage and to be shown in a kitchen. This was clearly an open challenge to traditional norms about masculinity. But it was also a way to show that cooking is linked to family, to society, to culture, and that it does not necessarily have to be a gendered responsibility. This was definitely one of the most innovative approaches that we have seen in the clean cooking space in many years. Of course, we know that changing social norms and cultural perceptions is a slow process that does not deliver tangible results overnight. However, addressing social and cultural root causes of inequality And the gendered allocation of task and responsibility is, in my opinion, equally important as, for instance, developing new products, designing new marketing strategies, promoting access to finance, or adopting new regulations for a conducive ecosystem. And on this topic, I would like to make a final note. When we speak of inclusiveness of women in the clean cooking space, we shall also not overlook the importance of having women in decision-making. The voice, the perspective, and the needs of women need to be conveyed also in the regulatory environment, at least as much as they need to be included in industry and customer engagement. Because one reason why this topic is still not being given enough political attention and priority is because women are significantly underrepresented, if not missing, in the fora and at the tables where decisions are taken and regulations are developed about energy, resources, development plans, and growth strategies. So I believe my time is up, so I will stop here for now, but I shall be happy to take any question or discuss further during the panel. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Sylvia, for sharing those points. I think a lot of your points will be on the mind of a lot of women over here. And the important fact that you have shared, that it's very important for women to be present where these discussions are happening. And having been worked in this sector for quite some time, I also personally feel this aspect very clearly, that the discussions would be swayed very differently if we have more women in the room rather than men discussing these issues. So with this, I think we'll move forward with our panel discussion. And for that, I would invite our moderator for today, Dr. Joni Cook. She's the MECS Communication Officer. Joni's worked in the renewable energy and international development landscape since March 2017, having previously managed communications for Low Carbon Energy for Development Network, LCEDN. Johnny holds a PhD in geography and specializes in plant ecology. So, Johnny, I would request you to please take this forward and also to introduce your panelists for today. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sheetal. So welcome all. We are delighted to welcome our panelist of experts from the clean cooking and renewable energy sectors and our audience to today's webinar on such an important and timely topic of advancing gender equality in the clean cooking sector. So before I introduce our panelists, I'd like to provide a short overview for context. The energy sector is one of the most gender imbalanced sectors. In fact, the IEA report that it is almost twice as male-dominated as other sectors. Women earn on average 20% fewer wages than men and continue to be underrepresented in leadership positions. However, for the clean cooking sector, we lack gender aggregated data, and there is also a need for a unifying framework to measure and assess gender impacts of modern energy cooking solutions. Advancing gender equality in the clean cooking sector itself is a critical part of achieving SDGs 7 and 5. Women are critical agents of progress. For example, recent research by the Clean Cooking Alliance has shown that women are critical agents, with women entrepreneurs selling 3 times more cook stoves than their male counterparts, following empowerment training for women and men. Recently, the United Nations identified 4 key areas where gender inequalities are substantial in the energy sector. 2 of these being entrepreneurship and the enabling environment for women's participation. We will discuss today how we can empower women in these areas and more to accelerate the transition to gender equality in the clean cooking sector. Our expert panelists today come from diverse career backgrounds and skill sets, ranging from consultancy in areas such as renewable energy and climate change mitigation, research and academia, to the private sector, and bring a wealth of experience in spearheading gender mainstreaming initiatives in a variety of contexts and sectors to today's discussion. So let's offer a warm welcome to our panelists. Firstly, to introduce Ritu Singh, Dr. Ritu Singh, who is the Deputy General Manager at Energy Efficiency Services Limited, where she has worked since 2015 and has implemented energy efficiency programs such as UNAT GOT by Affordable LEDs for All, the Streetlight National Programme, and the Building Energy Efficiency Programme. Ritu is also designated as the gender focal point in the organisation and spearheads gender mainstreaming interventions. So welcome, Ritu. Now to introduce Reena Suri, who is the Executive Director with India Smart Grid Forum since 2013. Reena has contributed to various advisory services, reports, capacity building initiatives and pilot projects of the forum relating to electrification of public transport and infrastructure for smart grids and electric vehicles. Reena has been leading various initiatives to increase gender diversity in the energy sector. The initiatives were helpful in enhancing networking and mentoring programs for women, creating awareness of and technology amongst women, and attracting women to technical education and showcasing role models. Now to introduce Ms. Arthi Kanodia, who's the Director of Real Flame. So Arthi studied business management and is the only woman manufacturer of cook stoves amongst 50 to 60 manufacturers in India. Her experience lies in establishing supply chain and deep distribution networks for stoves in India. At present, the company under her directorship has sold over 3 million cooking stoves across all Indian states to provide clean yet affordable cooking solutions to the rural populace. And then finally, we have Sylvia Sartori, who's already been introduced by Sheetal. Okay, so welcome all. And now we'll move on to our discussions. So if we could start with a question for Sylvia. We all agree that the adoption of clean cooking solutions can decrease the amount of time and effort used for collecting fuel and cooking, thus allowing women more time to spend on generating income, pursuing educational training, or enjoying leisure activities with family. What do you think are the key economic, social, and cultural barriers for women for adopting clean cooking technologies? And also, from your experience of engaging with women globally, what do you think could be successful models for engaging more women in this sector? Okay, thank you. Over to you, Sylvia.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you for these questions, which are indeed very important. And I think we could easily have just a couple of talk series specifically to unpack these questions. These are really, really crucial. But since we just have a few minutes to try and address them, let me try and identify a few key areas which could actually act both as a barrier as well as an incentive for a wider uptake of clean cooking technologies for women, depending on whether and how they are taken into consideration. So first of all, of course, we have economic factors. So things like the price of the stoves, the income level of the target women are, I think, the most basic things that are usually taken into consideration. There are then also social demographics detail. So elements such as the level of education of the women, their age group, they also play an important role on whether and how women go for a clean cooking technology. Connected to that is also their attitude toward technology. So we know again that different persons with different social demographic details tend to have a different feeling towards technology, tend to trust it more than others, or tend to be a bit more resistant. Technical features of the product themselves are also important, and depending on the situations could act as a barrier or as an incentive. And one element that is important to take into account in this case is also that of fuel availability, because the technical performance of the stove itself might be good, but then if the women or the local community struggles to procure fuel, or if related fuel is very expensive, then the appeal of the stall itself is, as a result, also affected. There are then elements in terms of general awareness and information. So we should also be asking ourselves, what type of information do our target women have about the risk of the traditional cook stoves and the benefits of the improved stoves? How much do they know about the health impacts or the environmental impacts and the environmental performance of the stoves they have and or those that they might be using if they switch to a cleaner product? Six, I would say location is also a very important element because it has to do with accessibility, with access to the stores where the stoves can be produced or can be delivered or also maintained and repaired. And then, as I was mentioning earlier, elements of social and cultural influence are also very important. And here, the importance also of the community where the women are living and are embedded is also very important. Perception is also an element that plays a very important role in the choices related to the stoves. And when we talk about perception, we should consider perception related to the convenience and the use of the stove. So a stove might be performing exceptionally, in the lab and in terms of technical performance, but might be perceived by the women to be not so convenient compared to their traditional stoves, or to be not so user-friendly. And we've actually seen a lot of projects in the course of the years that came up piloting really good stoves from a technical point of view, but which were not taken up at all by the women because they did not consider them to be user-friendly or convenient. Aesthetics is also something that should not be overlooked. It might seem like a minor detail because after all, we are talking of a stove, but it is actually still an element that plays an important role when women have to, and households, not just women, decide which stove to go for. And then perception are also very much related to the impacts of the stove on environment and on health. Of course, as I said earlier, different persons might have a different level of information and awareness about environmental and health impacts of a different stove. But this is still an element that, from a marketing perspective, also plays a role in determining women's decision to go for one stove versus another. Traditionally, I've seen that in cooking, clean cooking related projects, a lot of focus has been paid on availability and affordability of the technology. But we've actually seen a lot of initiatives that, precisely because they focus on these two elements alone, did not actually lead to a wide uptake of the improved stoves that they actually conceived. So the projects did well in terms of testing and designing the stoves, but then something was going wrong in the outreach to the market, and the stoves were remaining in a lab and no one was going to buy them. Or sometimes we had even programs where the stoves were given out for free to be tested and used, and even in those cases the women were reluctant or resistant to use them. So one of my first advices would be really not to underestimate the importance of taking into consideration local specificities. So the local context where the target women live, the local cultural and social dynamics, because these products, as with every other product that we use, need to be personalized and tailor-made to the specific target users. In terms of success factors for models that could promote a wider uptake of the stoves, as I said, first of all, it's really important that the stoves themselves and the process through which they are designed and they are put into the market is really tailor-made as much as possible. So we cannot think of just one general product for the whole country or for any woman. We need to try and be as specific as possible, taking into account the local, cultural, demographics, and social features of the target population. It's also important, in my experience, to think of the clean cooking value chain as a whole, including also the stages of maintenance and repair. I have seen a number of projects that were very successful in testing cleaner cook stoves, but which eventually failed because the women had the feeling, and very often they were right, that if something was then going wrong with their stove, there was no one else in their area that was available to help maintain it or to repair it. So it's also important that when we think of a new product, we think of the whole life of the product itself. So women need to be also reassured that if something goes wrong or if they have some questions about the product, there is someone fairly accessible that they can turn to use it. And I think in general, the, the process of developing and distributing improved cook stoves need to be developed and also sold as a co-creation process, meaning it has to be a process where women need to be actively engaged from the start, because as I said, this is a product that is going to be mostly targeting women, so it needs to take into account their needs, their concerns, their reservations, and they need to feel that they are part of the process and that they own the process as much as the producers. So they don't have to be, I think, treated as some kind of victims that need to be helped out, although obviously the product is going to benefit them first and foremost, but they need to be treated as co-creators of a solution that benefits them, but benefits society as a whole. And then I think my last advice would be also to remind of the importance of considering access to finance, because we've seen many cases also of women who were either existing entrepreneurs or wanted to become entrepreneurs in this sector, which failed to develop their enterprise because as a woman, they were struggling to get access to finance. So I think this is another problem and challenge we see across a number of development sectors, but it does apply to clean cooking as well. So maybe I will stop it here.
Yeah.
Happy to discuss.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Sylvia, for your valuable insight into breaking barriers for women in adopting clean cooking technologies. So to move on, we have a question that Ritu is going to discuss. So Ritu, you represent an organization known for building successful models for large-scale deployment of energy-efficient solutions. What is the potential of a woman-to-woman marketing model for achieving the success in promotion of modern energy-based clean cooking devices? And additionally, should organizations prioritize women as sales agents and product or brand ambassadors, in addition to being managers and support staff in the company marketing? Do you think adoption of clean cooking is quicker if the women in the family are engaged in paid jobs or have greater physical mobility? Okay, thank you, Ritu. Over to you. Sorry,
you need to unmute yourself.
Sorry, I just forgot that it is muted. So thank you for organizing this kind of event, and thank you for inviting us, because this is for the first time I'm getting associated with MECS and Finovista. So very rightly mentioned about ESL, that ESL works on energy efficiency, and we work under Ministry of Power for implementing programs which are on energy efficiency. And as I had mentioned in my short brief, that we have worked on solar light, street light program, and then for Ujala, which were the national programs. And also we have worked on solar lantern. Now coming to your questions on regarding women as a marketing agent. So we rightly feel that yes, women works as a marketing agent because they are the main consumer or main user of cook stove, and they are associated with all the ancillary activities which is associated with cooking, whether it is collection of firewood or whether it is purchase of the grocery or vegetables. So she does all the work related to cooking. When it comes to understanding and making them as a sales agent, because they are deeply involved in cooking, so they understand all the nuances, the benefits, and in and out of the cooking process. So once we make them as a sales agent, maybe if they work as an entrepreneur level or sales agent, they work for installation or for repair and maintenance. So for everywhere you see that they have a critical role. And this I would like to present it, explain you with an example, because as I mentioned about the program about soul, and so soul on basically on soul, what we had done, this was a program launched by MNRE, where there was a MOU signed between ESL, MNRE, and IIT Mumbai. IIT Mumbai was a technical partner, and this program was basically on assembling of the solar lantern and distributing it to students who do not have a grid-connected electricity at their houses. And this was run in 5 states where you have less than 50% grid connectivity electricity. And the women back in states, so there was further an agreement signed with the rural development through their Jivika, where it helped us in identifying the woman as a champion who would work on assembling of the solar lantern, and they only initiated in distributing to those lantern to school students. And the technical know-how was provided by IIT Mumbai. And through this program, in a year of time, we could distribute more than 61 lakh of solar lantern. But beyond that, the beauty of this program was that even after this program got over, because the women were given the technical training, so they continued with that business, and they continued to collect the spare parts, assemble it, develop it as a product, and sell it to the household. But this time, not limiting themselves to only to the school students. It was anybody who were there in the rural area and who needed this product. And over the time, they also developed, they understood that they have to give the warranty service, so they maintained the quality. And simultaneously, because we had initially run a program on LED bulbs, so they understood that how they have to assemble the parts, the components. So they were able to do that with the LED bulbs as well. And that's how we saw the penetration happening in the rural areas. And why my focus is more in the rural areas, because in urban area, we still have a better life. But when you go to rural area, we see that there's again a constraint, be it for cooking, where still we find people, the women especially, that using the traditional chulha. So one of the National Family Health Surveys that was done for the year 2019 to 21, that was the fifth round of survey, where it clearly mentioned that 41% of the women still they are using the traditional chulha for their cooking, and they are the drudgered part of their life, because most of the fruitful time goes in cooking and firewood collection. So back to my program that we have initiated here through ESL, we found that this kind of initiative, it helps in replication also, because it has a publicity from mouth to mouth, and because we had engaged self-help group women. So I would also like to mention the Rural Development Department, they have more than 80 million self-help women in the rural area across states, where they are working on different sectors, be it like farming sector or on the entrepreneurship model or on the garbage collection, but they are involved in some kind of livelihood. But the monthly income that they're able to generate out of these activity is very less. It is not more than 8 to 12,000 per month. So if we continue to have these kind of programs, which also help in replication, because it has its own advantage, it gives you a revenue, it enhances your household income. So that also helps in keeping the program or keeping the work sustainable, which is more environment friendly. And second thing, when we talk about, so one is that they are the main user. Second is because they can become a seller as an agent. And third is they have more of the convincing power. As I mentioned that they are the main user, so you also see them that they are able to convince more, because they are able to demonstrate. So people living in their counterpart, they're in their premises, in the same village, so they are able to reach out to those women and see that how these products are working, understand its benefits, and they are able to replicate it. So when we talk about the sales agent, so in the government program with the rural development, when I mentioned about GBK. So in one of the state, Bihar, where we had visited in Bodh Gaya, and we saw that these self-help group women have developed their registered company with GBK, which is named as J Wires. And through this J Wires, they are selling these energy efficient appliances, where they're also selling this improved cook stove. So that is helping them in generating their own revenue. Second, we also saw many women who are working on a commission. Like if you see the companies like the detergent companies, they engage women because mainly the detergents are used for washing clothes. And again, this gets related very familiar with the women. So they are selling such product through women, where they're making them as an agent on a commission basis. And this is helping in reaching out to more households. And through our soul program, as I mentioned about the training program, so that gives you a permanent like a skill set, and which helps you in continuing with your program and continue with the revenue. And so this was for your first question. Second question was on how to engage women as whether the woman should only be engaged as an ambassador, or they should be as a sales agent. So for this, my concern would be that if you have to see them on a role of ambassadors, it should be for both male and female both. Why? Because if we just keep only a focus towards women, so it becomes very stereotype, because then you all only relate with women, and then you are not able to get the perspective of male. Because for everything, be it design, and if you want to make it like a participative, where you want that women along with male should also be participative in all the house courses, so then I think male should also be made part of this program as an ambassador. But when it comes to as a sales agent, where they need a professional training, and where we see that the employment of women, as rightly mentioned by John also, that it is very less in the energy sector. It is just half of what male presence are there in the energy sector. So then it makes all the more convincing that there should be policy support from the government, where you can have enrollment of more women as a sales agent. And this would also help in improving the livelihood of the people, and that will also help in reducing their time which goes in like invisible work that they do at the household level, be it cooking, be it firewood collection, or be it looking after the children. And this should be, it becomes very automatically that the male counterpart starts sharing all these household chores, and the female get more of the productive time to work for their profession. The second constraint that we see, once you make this woman as a sales agent, then you also have to see, especially in the rural area, you also have to see their mobility challenge, because most of the women in the rural areas, if they are not able to go out of their houses, it is just because they do not have their mobility access freedom, because they are more dependent either on the public transport, or they are dependent on their family members who could help them in getting like travel from one place to other. So again, ESL has found that gap, and developing a program which is named as Electric Bicycle, to address the issue of working women in the rural area who can have this independence of travel at their own convenient time, and that also reduces their travel time. So this I would support with one of the data that we found in one of the study done by the national NRHS, and where it said that because female is more engaged in the household chores, so in a day they only have 6 hours of productive time for their professional work, where they can go out, and out of that 6 hours, 30% of the time goes on travel. So that's how this idea came to us, that we have to address this issue of travel also, when we want to make women equally capable, well equipped, and to run at par with male for all the activities, be at home or be outside. In terms of now, your third question was that about the advantages. So with all these, we see that we will be able to reduce the drudgery, we will be able to improve the employability, We will also be able to make women more represented in the professional world. And based on our like the insight that we have from the several visits that we have done in past few months, we have found that especially the young generation, if you see even in the rural area, this literacy is becoming very prominent. People, all, be it like your girl child or a male child, everybody wants to study. They are going to school, so their enrollment in the school is increasing. If we compare with the older generation, maybe in the category of 40 to 50 years, so there you have less of literacy. So that really helps in adopting to new technology because they understand. So the reservation or the mindset, the rigidity that was there earlier with the without literacy, so that we are seeing that it is getting diluted with the younger generation, and younger generation is able to convince their parents or the older people in their family to adopt to these new technologies. So I would say that
Brilliant. Thank you
what
very
we have.
much, Ritu. That's some really valuable insight there into how women-led business models can empower women as critical agents of positive change. So leading on, it's often been concluded that women's talents and insights are even more underutilized in the renewable energy sector, and the sector is primarily perceived as male-dominated. What are the perceived gender-specific barriers, Reena, that restrict participation in these areas? And how can we address these barriers to increase women's involvement in clean energy solutions to ensure that the benefits of clean energy reach everyone? Okay, over to you, Reena. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tony, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank Modern Energy Cooking Services for having me here as part of this important initiative and their 10th talk show. I'm very glad to see a good participation, and particularly a lot of male participation also. So we have a gender balance here. So I'm really glad. But however, I've been working in the energy sector for over 20 years now, and with the transition that we see in the sector, we see that gender equality is has been the least addressed, and it is it is not just a social change that we are looking for, but it is rather now with the changes, it is a business imperative for all the organizations to ensure gender parity in the sector. I would also like to highlight that I have had the privilege of being a part of the Global Women's Network for Energy Transition, and have been mentoring as part of the Women in Clean Energy, Clean Cooking. I have been a mentor as part of the Clean Cooking Alliance and Sustainable Energy for all. So I'm very glad that I'm able to contribute to some change that we are looking forward to bring. So as regards the role and the barriers that we see in the transition that we are facing from fossil fuel towards the clean energy sources of energy, this will require not only innovative solutions that we are working on to facilitate the change, but and business models and all, but to also to a greater extent participation of a diverse talent pool that we have seen. And many barriers exist that dissuade women from pursuing careers and leadership roles in the sector, particularly from what we have seen over the years. Most of the panels we see are led by women, are men, and the leadership roles in the board. You don't see a lot of participation of women. So there is a dire need to bring a change here and create awareness among the public and the private authorities on the added value and need to promote women's leadership and participation in the development of this clean energy sector that we are looking for. And the renewable energy sector has immense potential. Particularly talking about India, there is a huge target that we have set, and for achieving that, we not only need solution, but also, as I mentioned, we need a diverse pool. We need a huge, a number of people to be able to implement, the projects and initiatives that the government is planning. And however, the women's talents are underutilized, and the insights leading to prevailing perceptions of it being primarily a male-dominated field, particularly talking about the renewable energy. So, to address this imbalance and foster the increased women's involvement in the clean energy solution, it is essential to identify specific gender-specific barriers and work towards this with the right policies and strategies. And we have seen that the organizations, particularly, having a diverse pool, practicing diversity, have outperformed the organizations which have not implemented inclusivity and diversity in their sector. So more transformative changes can be brought in with the right mentoring, nurturing, training, and having women in the leadership role, and that we have seen in the sector over the years. And in terms of women participation in the sector in general, holding the various initiatives undertaken in terms of having the right policies, programs in various organizations or the energy sector that you think that have encouraged higher participation of women and supporting them in sustainable positions and jobs. Talking about as simple as having a job description in an organization which supports women, the role of women and the barriers that they have in terms of managing the role, that should be addressed right from the job description. So to promote,
brilliant.
To promote,
thank you very much.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, thank you, Reena. We're just I'm just mindful of the time. Thank you very much for those valuable insights into how we can break the gender-specific barriers in the industry. So moving on, Arthi, how do you see the role of women as clean energy entrepreneurs in catalyzing the market in developing effective, culturally appropriate and sustainable solutions? And as a woman entrepreneur yourself, what are your own experiences? Have you implemented any strategies to engage more women in your own business? Thank you, Arthi.
Thank you, Johnny Cook, for your question, and the organizers for bringing us together as a step towards gender neutrality. I think women bring unique perspectives, skills, and experiences of clean energy sector, which can significantly impact its growth and success. Women entrepreneurs often approach challenges with fresh perspectives and innovative idea. We have read and seen in movies that men come home with a lot of stress and problems, and we randomly come up with a solution that happens to be $1 million idea, and we have all experienced that. It's true that their diverse experiences and insights can lead to development of unique and effective clean solutions. We break gender barriers and contribute more inclusive and diverse solution. So, and there is a special thing about women entrepreneurs that we are more social and environmental centric and not financial goals. Like we do not have much of financial goals, but we also prioritize social and environmental sustainability. So when we try to explain with empathy, people connect to us from heart. Today with globalization, when things have to be so quick and with perfection, collaboration is key to success. And we see that women are very good with collaborations and networking and partnership. We tend to be more attentive to customer needs and come up with tailored solution. And that makes us excellent at networking, and men here would agree that we are also excellent at remembering everything. So this customer-centric fresh approach increases the acceptance and adoption of any product that we are working towards. If you talk about my experience, I'm from a joint Marwadi family where the dominance of male is unsaid and compulsory. Uh, so if but for me it was against human rights of not being able to pursue what I'm most interested in. When we are young, it's very difficult to say, okay, are we good enough to make it? But at that point, it's more important that someone believes in us. For men, it is understood that they would go do something important and put food on our table. But as women, it gets very difficult to take the roads that are not taken. There are many around us to bring our spirits down. But the moment we start believing in ourselves, we actually start meeting people around us who show us spark or flight. And for us, it is important to see that spark of light and keep moving. I met many good and supportive men at work. One of them told me at a very early stage that stop giving excuses to yourself and stop telling yourself, oh, I'm a woman, so this did not happen, that did not happen. You're here, accept it, believe it, and do such things that people remember that, yes, they met you. And that was enough to bring all the change in my mind, and it made all the difference. And I realized in my mind when I removed that barrier, nobody could stop me from doing anything I ever wanted to do. So it's our mind that is trained by people around us and the systems that distinguishes the daily chores between men and women. I always ask why men choose if can't choose if they want to be a homemaker or a bread earner. Like the society has also put a lot of pressure on men as a bread owner. What if he doesn't wants to earn bread, and what if he doesn't wants to take the pressure of earning throughout his life for his entire family? That pressure and that burden can also be shared, but we are made to believe that that's the only way to operate. In our organization, 70% of our workforce is women, and I'm very adamant that she has to be a mother, because a mother brings dedication, time discipline, loyalty, and empathy in the team. And it's a common practice in India that once a woman gets married, she leaves her entire home, friends, parents, family, and she goes to a new home, and she makes her husband's family, friends, and surroundings everything as her life. And in our organization, we believe that when she can do that naturally every day and excel at it without being appreciated, then what if we give a purpose to her that appreciates her and helps her to be seen? That works for us and makes us a unique organization that is not only working for finance, but also bring change in our existence. And we are living in 21st century, and I think it totally should depend on a person if he or she decides to choose career or home. Both are excellent and beautiful. First, we need to believe and accept our choice. So, and I strongly,
Brilliant.
yeah,
Thank you very much, Arti. That's really fantastic insight from an entrepreneurship angle. So just for the last couple of minutes, if we just move to our audience, here we have some questions in the chat. So one earlier, which Sylvia has answered in the chat, but maybe we could just touch on this now. So over to Sylvia and the rest of the panelists. What are the challenges that women have faced in access to finance, and how are they overcome? And that's Dr. Purushottam Shrestha has asked this question. Okay, thank you.
Thank you again for the question. It's a very broad topic, so I will try to hint at some elements of the answers, and I think my fellow panelists from their experience as entrepreneurs can also complement their views. The challenges also vary quite a bit depending on the cultures and the geographies where the women find themselves. But the most common challenge we find in this respect has to do with women being requested when they apply for loans or for credits to show some collaterals or some guarantees. But we know that in many countries, either as a cultural practice or even as a regulatory prescription, women are not recognized ownership of assets. So as such, they are not in a position of showing any collateral. And as a result, they are denied access to loans and credits, and they necessarily then need to depend on their husband or father or other male family members or acquaintances to be able to access credits. And another challenge has to do with the fact that in the financial sector in general as a whole, and this includes developed as well as developing countries, women are still generally perceived as a riskier client compared to men, even though multiple research and evidence has shown by now how actually women tend to perform better than men when they've been given credit. So they tend to repay their debts much more regularly than men, they default less than men, so they're actually more diligent in terms of their performance. But nonetheless, there is still this prevailing cultural perception that it's riskier to lend money to women than to men. So here, I think what would be needed is, and what is already partially done, is a lot of awareness raising, a lot of engagement. And this, again, partially has to do with the fact that a lot of the leadership positions in the finance sector as well are held by men. So the position, the voice, and the profile of women is still not represented enough.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Sylvia. Thank you to all of our panelists today. And it's been a really valuable and insightful session. So over to you, Sheetal, for the final comments.
Thank you, Johnny, and thank you all to the panelists for being with us today and sharing your insights. And like Sylvia said, that we need a couple of talk series on a topic to do justice on a topic like this. And we are also internally mulling that every 12 sessions that we have, we should at least have 3 to 4 sessions which are focusing on similar topics. And we will be actually, this entire session is recorded, and we'll be sharing this to be published very aren't able to hear to the discussion. So we'll do that. And thank you all again for joining us today. And we look forward to connecting back with you and discussing more on this topic. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, Aarti. Thank you so much.